Sure. Here's the bottom line. There's over the past century, America and the world has grown exponentially. We have added more population, we've added more infrastructure. Now, that infrastructure is consisting of things like concrete, asphalt, and energy utilizing devices.
Mhm.
Engines, air conditioners, tractors, trucks, cars, the whole thing. So our energy use has also soared, in addition to the fact that our infrastructure has increased. Now, here's the thing: well, climate scientists value long term records of temperature. They think that the long term records are the ones that are the real telling ones. Well, there's a fantastic example, and I don't have it available here real quick, but
Yeah.
I can tell you the story. The University of Arizona at Tucson is the perfect example of this. It was a land grant university put together in the 1800s. Oh, there it is. Thank you.
Mhm.
Now, um, they started out with a land grant university, mostly agricultural based, and then it grew just like Tucson did and Phoenix did. And so more and more buildings got put up, and the campus kept getting more and more. Uh, occupied, more roads, more buildings. And so in the final analysis, the temperature station, which used to be out on a field in a mostly agrarian campus, ended up in the parking lot. And this is the picture here on the left. The station that they used to measure temperature and therefore climate, because it was a long-term station, ended up in the parking lot in front of the atmospheric sciences department at the University of Tucson.
The
Now,
irony.
these scientists knew better, but they had no place left to put it because the campus kept getting absorbed by needing more and more buildings and infrastructure. So they put it in the parking lot. Now, I got to tell you, and anybody who's ever experienced a summer day where they have been out, in the sun, and then at nighttime, you stand next to a building and you can feel the heat radiating off of it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's because the concrete or the asphalt or whatever it is, the bricks have absorbed the sunlight and they are now re-radiating that as infrared at night. That keeps the local air temperature up. It elevates the nighttime temperature. And so what happens in the whole climate scheme of things is that because of this extra infrastructure, absorbing solar radiation, the nighttime temperatures have increased dramatically across the board throughout the United States and the world. We
Yeah.
can show this, it's verifiable. And it's because of this infrastructure absorbing heat and re releasing it at night. Las Vegas is a perfect example. For example, Las Vegas has built up over the last 50 years and just megapolis, right?
Yeah.
And so you end up with this urban heat island, which not doesn't really make the highs much higher during the day, but it makes the nighttime lows so much higher.
Mhm.
And because the nighttime lows are higher, when you average the high temperature and the low temperature for each day throughout the year, because the low temperature is elevated, the average goes up. And they use the average to predict the climate change. And that's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a chart here that shows the weather station, and this is on the bottom. You can see how they're rated, which I know you've done a lot of work with too, Anthony.
Right.
But you can see that the majority of these temperature stations, if they're red or orange for us colorblind people, that's not me, but I'm sure someone out here is. Well, I have nothing to say because I'm not
Well,
colorblind.
the number is 82.5% of the stations we surveyed have some kind of problems associated with encroachment of infrastructure. And if you look at the trend comparisons, we did a study where
Mhm.
you look at the stations that have not been impacted, the ones that are out in the boonies, like agricultural experiment stations in the middle of North Dakota and things like that. Those have a trend over the last 30 years of about zero point 0.2, but the rest of them are much warmer. And that's
Yeah.
the problem. They're mixing all these together to come up with a climate signal, and it's biased because of this. And there's actually peer reviewed studies. The study that we started in 2009 with the Surface Station Project has turned into action on the part of science. They've published peer reviewed studies that back up what we found.
Mhm.
And yet, science as a whole, climate science, is still not paying attention to it, and they're chasing these models still.